Welcome to Still a Part of Us. Again, we are so pleased to be talking with Sarah today. We just had a wonderful conversation about the birth and of her twins, and then also the death of her one of the twins, Xander. And so I'm grateful Sarah is willing to come talk with us again and tell us a little bit about her journey through all of this grief. So thank you again, Sarah, for coming in and telling Xander's story.
Thank you for having me.
As a just kind of a refresher, can you tell us what happened to Xander and about at the time of this recording, how long ago it was that he was born?
So he was born on October 5th, 2022, and passed away October 7th. He and his identical twin brother had a condition called TAPS, Twin Anemia Polycythemia Sequence. It was completely missed by our medical team until we were at 27 weeks. And at that point, he was in stage 4, which is heart failure. My doctors and I immediately made the decision to admit to the hospital because of an additional complication of how Xavier was receiving blood supply and nutrients as well. When Xander passed away, we would simultaneously lose Xavier.
Yeah.
So it really was a tricky situation to find ourselves in. We did end up having an emergency C-section just a few hours after that appointment. And both babies were immediately taken to the NICU. They were 26 weeks and 23 weeks gestationally. And so it really was an uphill struggle with the TAPS. They had to have special transfusions,
Right.
and then they had to fight. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I would highly encourage listening to that episode because there is a lot going on and just some of the decisions that had to be made and how quickly things happen. My mind is blown. When you told me you're like, my appointment was at 2 and I was essentially getting wheeled in like a few hours later, like 4 hours later. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
quick.
4.5 hours after that, after the start of that appointment, they were born.
Yeah. So Sarah, I do have a couple of follow-up questions because I know that at the time when when they were both born, Xander had to be he had to be resuscitated,
Yes.
and they did get him back up and again. Was Xavier? Did he have to be resuscitated, or was he transitioned okay after he was born?
Yeah, he transitioned okay. So he was a bit stronger. When they diagnosed TAPS, they diagnosed based on the baby who's the worst off.
Yeah.
And so that's why we were in stage 4, because Xander was in heart failure.
Yes.
So Xavier hadn't gone into any type of failures yet. And so he was still relatively healthy in terms of heart condition. So their main concern with him was that because he was so early, was his lungs,
Yes.
because they weren't fully developed yet.
Yes.
And the TAPS had made his blood too thick. So he had to go through several transfusions in order to thin out his blood.
Yeah, because that
So
can that can tax the organs as
Mhm.
well. Like,
Right.
yeah, whether
Yeah.
it's you don't have enough red blood cells or too many. So,
Yeah.
and so one of the things that I like to talk about after, kind of right after you lost Xander, and then also dealing with essentially NICU
Mhm.
visits for
Yeah.
a long time. Because if I'm not mistaken, Xavier was there for what, 3-ish months?
Yeah, 81 days.
81 days. So, I
81
mean,
days, yeah. He was, born October 5th. We brought him home on Christmas Eve.
oh my gosh. So I kind of right around when
Yeah.
you guys were going to get induced,
We
right?
were going to
Or
get
get a
induced
C-section.
December 16th, yeah.
Okay.
So,
So, so you guys were there. There was a lot of juggling,
mhm.
and also I just am so. I would love for you to talk about what your grief looks like in those first few months because it feels really complicated. Like it feels
Yeah.
so complicated. You have
Yeah.
3 other boys. You have your husband. You have a full-time job, and I mean, obviously, you're probably on maternity leave at this
Mhm.
time. But can you talk about how you were handling that? Yeah, how you were handling your grief those first few months with all of these
Yeah.
complications.
Yeah, it was really, really hard. My parents were with us for the first 2 weeks
Oh, good.
after the boys were born. So, I could really rely on my mom a lot, who, in and of themselves. My parents were also grieving the loss of their grandchild.
Yeah.
But my mom was a really big help and my dad was a really big help. My sister came for a week. So it was good to have them help with like the household stuff.
Yes.
And so I didn't have to worry about dishes or cooking dinner or anything like that. I kind of focus on myself and the kids, and my husband. My kids and I like had kind of like a rotation where like my kids and I, like one of us, I would sit with one of them and we'd just cry for a little bit, and then
Oh.
like a couple hours later the next one would come in and we'd sit and cry for a little bit. And and I think my only child that didn't do that was our youngest at the time, because as I mentioned before, he has autism, and so his brain just doesn't work in that like I'm going to cry about this type phase. Like later on, when he was going through the testing and we found out that he had autism, we found out that like with his grieving process, he turns it into play. Like, so
Oh.
he would often imagine that he was playing with Xander as part of his grieving process. And so like he would say things like, I'm really sad that Xander's not here, and then he would go play with Xander.
Yeah.
So that was it's really been interesting to see how he's handled
Yeah.
it. With my other two, they my oldest tends to bottle things up. Like for the longest time, he didn't want to talk about his twin brothers. He didn't want to talk about Xander specifically. He would never ask how Xavier was doing because he was trying to like protect himself from what if my other brother dies. Like when he gets emotional about things, he tends to run and hide. So it's been a lot of work trying to get him to open up and to talk about things, and to tell him that it's okay to cry and it's okay to be sad and it's okay to be angry. And then our middle son, he's our emotional one to begin with, so he was never shy about crying.
Yeah.
He and I have actually had some talks about how to handle things at school, because this happened like right in the
Right.
middle of the fall term,
Right.
and they're all in elementary school. And he shared with me one day that it was really hard because kids kept asking, because they knew the twins' names, and so they would ask him like I can't remember, like, is it Xavier or Xander that died?
Oh.
And so they would like his classmates would like keep bringing it up, and then he shared with me that he's tired of being known as the kid whose brother died.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that was a point where I had to like sit down with his teachers and be like, I know that this is a hard situation for everybody, but I need you to kind of like talk to the class when he's not there, because we would like them to stop bringing it up repeatedly,
Yeah.
because it really is making it hard for him to grieve and to kind of move on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I hate that term, like move on. You don't really move on. You just kind of learn to adapt,
Yeah. Yeah.
to the new life. And so it was really beneficial. That talk with his teachers was really beneficial, because he did tell me later on that things kind of did improve, and
Good.
he didn't know why, but
Yes. Okay, good.
and then we did have the school counselor have sessions with both of the older two boys,
Okay.
and let them know that anytime they needed to talk, that they could always ask to go see them, and that sort of thing. And their teachers were always very supportive
That's great.
and understood that they would have very emotional days sometimes. And and in the meantime, like they're trying to navigate having a brother still in the NICU that they haven't been able to go see because of the
Yeah.
it's still being COVID times. And so like they've only ever seen their brother via FaceTime, and so that's hard. And with our youngest, his teacher actually had to email me about it, because they had like because he was in kindergarten at the time,
Mhm.
and so like they had like their morning share session, and he raises his hand the first day back and goes, my brother died. It's like,
Okay, we
it's
gotta check
yeah.
this out. Make sure this is
Yeah. So, and we did email their teachers and the school principal and let them know what had happened. So they were aware that his brother had passed away, and so it was the Monday following Xander's death that they had gone back to school.
Okay.
So it was 2 days after his death they'd gone back to school. Part of that was just kind of keeping things as normal as possible for them.
Right. Right.
And so his teacher had to have a conversation about like what happens when people die. And they're in a religious school, so they talked about
There was
heaven
yes,
and an
okay.
afterlife and all
Yeah,
that.
okay.
So yeah, so she had to like send an email to us and to all the other parents, like just kind of like letting them know what had happened. And like their principal had asked if they could share it with the wider school community, and we said that was okay, because having kids in multiple grades, like
You
we
just,
we we just
yeah.
wanted it out in the open. We didn't
Yes.
want like the any rumors to be flying around.
Yes.
Um, so, and of course, like even 2 years later, they're still processing things.
Oh, yes.
Especially as we see Xavier like grow and go through milestones, and my youngest will still tell me, Mama, I wish Xander was here too. And it's like, I know, baby, I wish he was too.
Yeah.
For myself, in the first couple days after Xander's death, my MFM did refer me to a therapist.
Okay.
It was not a good fit at all.
Okay.
It
Okay.
was, I had a really bad experience from the first phone call all the way to the end of the first visit, when I was like,
Okay.
this is not going to work.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. You got
and
to
and when
find the
they,
right
yeah,
person. You got
yeah,
to find
when
the right
they
person.
called me back a second time, I was like, I'm going to find care with somebody else. Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Good. And that's great
Yeah,
being that you were an advocate for yourself because that's one thing I think people are like, therapy didn't work for me. And I was like, it's probably just the therapist. You just
yeah,
need to find the right person. So
yeah. And I really
good.
felt that they had no clue as to like the type of trauma that I'd been through.
Yes.
I mean, because it was a very traumatic situation, from going in for a regular doctor's visit to finding out your babies were dying, to finding out that, hey, they're going to be born today, to one
Yes.
dying, to one being struggling for life. Like it was a very traumatic
Yes.
situation. And I mean, even the microwave going off still gives me PTSD.
Yeah.
So,
The
because of all the
beeps.
beeps. Yes,
Yeah.
the beeps. So yeah, like, so I definitely like ended things with that therapist, and I was like, it's not going to
Yes.
work. It took some time before I found another therapist, and part of that is I put it off because really focused on keeping my family together,
Yeah.
um, because I know that situations like this can tear families apart.
So
Um,
easily.
and I was more focused on keeping all of us together and keeping us going versus taking care of myself. And I wish I had taken better care of myself, but I did find my own ways to cope. I spent as much time as I could in the NICU with Xavier, and every time that he would, do something, or like the first time we heard him cry, like I got really emotional.
Yes.
And of course, the nurses are like, "It's okay, he's not hurt or anything," because they thought that, like,
You
that
were
we thought he was
worried.
hurting.
Right.
I was like, "No, no, no, this is good. This is the first time I've ever heard him cry." And
Yeah.
this was like 2 months after he was born.
Yeah.
And so it was like, just kind of like every time he would go through these milestones, kind of thinking, okay, Xander would be doing this too. And some of the other things that I did was, once my doctor cleared me physically, I started running again.
Mm.
I had been a runner prior to their birth, doing everything from 5Ks up to half
Mhm.
marathons.
Mhm.
And I was actually supposed to run a 19.6 mile race or something like that, while 8 months pregnant.
Oh my
um,
goodness.
my doctor was like, you probably shouldn't. um, so I did back out of that race before they were born. But while I was still pregnant, I'd signed up for a race the following April, at a half marathon distance.
Oh, okay.
And when they were born so early, and then going through all the things that I had to go through for physical healing, like, I guess the type of C-section that I had was a different type of incision. So like I had like a longer recovery time in terms of like physical limitations. Like I really couldn't like start running again until 12 weeks after
Yeah.
the surgery, instead of the typical 8 weeks. And when I did start running, I had to wear like special bands to kind of
To
like give
support.
more support. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and even then, like, I really didn't get back to I mean, I definitely was not at my typical pace. Running, like, the last race that I ran, I had my shirt said running is my therapy. And it really was. Like, it really was. Anytime I was feeling overwhelmed, I would go for a run. Anytime I was
Yeah.
feeling incredibly sad, I would go for a run. I think I had more conversations with God during those runs than I have in my entire life. And like very like open and honest, like upfront conversations of like, I'm really mad at you. Like, I hate that you did this to me and my family.
Yeah.
And like, why did you have to take him? And like, I don't understand. Like, make me understand. And just being able to have those very open conversations as a person of faith. And that was the other thing too, like leaning on my faith, like was
Yes.
very, very
Yes.
important. Yeah. I know sometimes situations like this can make people lose faith. And I really like leaned into it,
Mhm.
even more so than when I'd experienced previous losses in life. So that was kind of a comfort and kind of helps me get through every day knowing that I'm going to see him again.
Yeah.
Um, every race that I've run since Xander's passing has been in memory of him.
Hmm.
On the back of my shirt, I put this little saying that says "In memory of Xander," and then it has his date of birth, his date of death, and then it says I have a pair of twins, kind of like snuggled together,
Yeah.
and then one of the twins has wings, and the slogan underneath that says, "Not all twins walk side by side. Sometimes one has wings to fly." And then I have the hashtag taps is silent and a little QR code, so that if
For
people ever feel
information.
it, ask questions, I can tell them to just scan the code, and that takes them right to the foundation's
Yeah.
website, where they can learn about TAPS and about what it is and how like certain things need to happen in order for it to be detected. And so that has been, I've had runners that have come up to me after races and been like, I wanted you to know that I saw you back on mile, whatever. And from there I ran for Xander.
Oh.
And I even had, I was at a race down at Disney and I had a medical physician come up alongside me and he and I talked for about a mile,
Oh.
because he was an MFM and he had experience with babies with TAPS. And so he and I like kind of chatted about what happened with us, and he was like, I'm so sorry that it wasn't caught. And, he's like, your son is a good reminder for me that I owe it
Yeah.
to these parents to be diligent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was, it's definitely kind of, brought people like into more awareness
Right.
of the struggles that are out there for expectant moms, especially moms of twins. It's like, running has definitely been my therapy.
Hmm.
And the last race that I ran was a marathon, and I
That's
ran the
awesome.
whole thing for him.
That's
And
awesome.
by mile 20, I had to call my sister, who's the same sister that came down
Yeah.
after he passed
Yeah.
away, and because I was really struggling. And she and I kind of talked through, and she's like, "You have to remember why you're doing this. Why are you doing this?" And I was like, "I'm doing this because I want my baby back." And it's just finding those physical outlets is was definitely beneficial.
Yeah.
And even if there were days that I couldn't go for a run, I would at least go for a walk, even if
Yeah.
that meant dragging all the other kids in tow with me.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah. So, because with my husband's work schedule, like he's gone a lot.
Hmm.
From the time we both leave the house in the morning to go to school to, and we're both high school teachers, so our school day starts at 7 a.m.
Yep.
And with him being a coach, sometimes we don't see him until 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Yep.
And
With those
um,
games and stuff, he's
yeah, and
busy.
yeah, if it's a game on the road, our area is so sparse that sometimes those games are 3 hours away. And
Oh. Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah, so it's definitely been. I've relied a lot on being able to do physical things in order to kind of go through the grieving process. And yeah.
There's something so nice. I have found that running is excellent as well. It feels like you can kind of pound out your anger on the
Yes,
pavement. I don't know what the
yes,
deal is, but it feels very therapeutic to do
yes,
that. I mean, but then also there's times when it's just nice to be outside in
yeah,
nature. And so
yeah,
I totally agree with you. I think
yeah.
that's cool that you've done that and there you've brought some awareness that way as well. How about your husband? How have you dealt with the loss and then also kind of, you know, I feel like there's like some reconciliation that needs to
Hmm.
happen in regards to, okay, we have a living child and his brother didn't make it. And like,
Yeah.
so how have you guys dealt with it as a couple? And then maybe how your husband has dealt with it, just kind of separately.
It's been a struggle for us.
Hmm.
And like he's very old school in turn and has a lot of cultural
Hmm. Hmm.
nuances as well, that it's kind of like men don't go to therapy, men don't show their emotions, that sort of thing. He grew up in a military household, so it was very
Oh,
much like
gotcha.
you're
You're,
you're not going to break down, you're going to stay steady. And
yep.
it's been a real struggle for him a lot of times. I had to tell him, like, it's okay. Like, you can, like, I'll hold you. You can break down. And on the instances that he's done that, I sometimes feel like bad that I haven't like cried with him in those moments. But at the same time, it's like usually I've done my crying like alone.
Yes.
And I don't have any tears left at that point.
Yes.
With that, it's been a lot of like just trying to like how are you feeling today? And I can always tell when he's stressed and when he's carrying, extra weight in terms of like emotional weight. There are times that I feel so helpless because it's like I want to be able to help him, and but I can't force him to go to therapy. Like I can't, force him to talk to somebody. And the difficult situation is like we don't know anybody who's experienced what we've experienced.
Yes. It's very unique.
Yeah, like I had one friend who, and I reached out to him immediately afterwards. His situation was he and his wife were pregnant with twins and then had a disappearing twin. And
Oh,
then, so they had to grieve that loss.
yeah.
And then their surviving twin was stillborn at 39 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Are you
So it was like
serious?
it was a double loss for them. And so like I reached out to him and I was like, I don't know how to navigate this. Like, what did you and Robin do? Like, how did you guys handle like people talking to you in this way? And like, it was really, really hard with my mother-in-law because like some of the things that she would say were just very insensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's part of like the cultural aspect of the culture that they come from.
Mm-hmm.
So like I had that benefit of having somebody to reach out to, but my husband didn't. And so then he also had these, these pressures of his family's culture and like how he's supposed to respond. And
Right.
a lot of times what he would do is he would just go cut the grass.
Yeah.
Like that was what he would do. When he was feeling upset, he'd go cut the grass.
Yeah.
Whether it was the grass here at our house or the grass on the baseball field, like he would just cut the grass.
Yeah.
And he would do it for hours, like hours. So it's really been a struggle. And even 2 years out, like I had to tell him the other day, like, honey, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, I need you to see somebody because,
Mm.
um, like I see that you're struggling, you're
It's
having a
hard.
hard
Yeah.
time, and it's not just Xander's death; it's the work things piled on top of it, and all the pressures that you have there. Because in high school sports, it's you got to win.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
if your
They
job depends
expect
on it,
you.
you have to
Mm-hmm.
win.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got all that pressure of being the provider and that sort of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's, I mean, having those open conversations is difficult, because he is rather a closed individual,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times I worry about whether or not, like, if I say something, if it's gonna like cause him to go into a downward spiral, and
Yeah.
so it's hard. And I would say that like for anybody going through a loss, like definitely try to be open and communicate with your spouse because these sorts of things can either tear you apart or bring you closer.
Yeah.
um, and I know partly for me, like the only thing I wanted to do in those first couple of weeks was be held. Like I just wanted to be held.
Yeah.
And he didn't know that unless I told him. Like he would like go to work and not come home, and then he'd go up to our room and like just go to bed. And it's like I had to tell him like I want to be held. I need to be held.
Yes.
Um, so being able to tell your spouse like what you need, and even if it's I need to go for a run, I need to be left alone for 20 minutes, I need to
Mm-hmm.
like be open about what it is that you need, and let them know that they can be open about what they need. And I think that's probably where he struggles, is he doesn't feel like he can be open
Mm-hmm.
because of how he was brought up. So
Yeah, those are really hard to yeah, some of
overcome,
those
yeah.
cultural things are hard to navigate. I will be honest. I coming from a Chinese background, that is something that is difficult too because you try and save face or you try and
Yep.
be stoic and
Yeah.
look like you have your crap put together all the
Right.
time and that's hard and it's hard to admit that you need help or that you're not doing okay. Is
Yeah.
that's hard.
And being a teacher, like I've had that conversation with my students too, like because of everything and how everything like played out. I got clearance from my MFM to return to work 6 weeks postpartum.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They wanted to keep me 8 weeks, and I was like, I need to save time for when Xavier comes home from the
What?
NICU,
Yes. Okay.
because I didn't have any short-term or long-term disability. And that was a whole nother fiasco from a
Yeah.
previous pregnancy. Basically, like, I'd been treated for postpartum depression with my last pregnancy. And whenever I got a new job and signed up for benefits and everything like that, the company that did the short-term and long-term disability was like, well, you were treated for an anxiety disorder, so we're not going to cover you.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Even though
That
I
is
had
messed
like,
up.
it is, even though I had my doctor like write letters and everything like that,
Yeah.
it was literally a 4-year process to find, or no, it was longer than that. No, it was a 4-year process. It was a 4-year process because it was when I changed jobs. It was a 4-year process to finally get the company to say, okay, yeah, we're going to cover you.
Oh my gosh.
But it was the January following the twins' birth
That you were able to
that I was finally able to get coverage. So it was like after the fact that I
after the
needed it.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but I actually went back to work 6 weeks postpartum with the stipulation that I was not going to pick up anything heavy or do anything strenuous
Okay.
or anything like that, which is tough because I'm an art teacher.
Yes.
So I am constantly like up and down and moving all over the place. And we have a clay class that I teach. And so it's like, I can't, so I had to get like my students to lift the 50-pound box of clay and,
Yes.
and that sort of thing. But I remember having the conversation with my students, like one of them said, I don't know how you're here. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I just don't know how you're here. Like, if my son died, I would be a mess. Like, how are you here? Like, how are you with us and able to teach? And I looked at him, I was like, you don't see me between classes. I was like, between classes, I'm sitting here crying. Like, my planning period, I'm sitting here crying. Like, I'm not put together. Like, and that's okay. Like, it's okay for me to do that because this is what I need to do in order for me to be able to make things work for me. Like, I enjoy being with you guys. What am I going to do otherwise? I'm going to sit at home in an empty house. Like, it's good for me to be here with you. Are there hard days? Yes. Are there hard moments? Yes.
For sure.
But I want to, I want to be here with you guys. And then when Xavier did come home from the NICU, I was able to take the rest of my maternity leave.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, so that was beneficial. So I had 6 weeks home with him. But yeah, like having those conversations and being open with anybody that asked. Like,
Yeah.
I had a friend that would text me almost daily and be like, how are you doing today? And just being able to tell her truthfully, like, I'm struggling, or I hate today, or I want to start over, or I just want to stay in bed. And that was the hardest thing about having other children is like, I have to get out of bed in the morning. I
You
have to
do.
like feed them. I have to,
Yes. Yeah.
you know. So I will say that like my other kids kept me going. I was put on an antidepressant for a while, and there were days that I wanted to follow Xander. Like I wanted to go see him right now. Um,
Yeah.
and I knew that I couldn't do that because my kids and my husband needed me.
Yeah.
So I will say that they really did keep me going, and they're the reason that I do still go.
Yes.
That I am
Yes.
keeping going.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So the help that you need, there's no time limit on it. I still see a therapist. We're 2.5 years out. So
Yeah.
I did an art therapy session where like I went to like a small group session where we made art, but like we went around and shared about the loss that we'd experienced.
Oh. Uh-huh.
And there was everybody there from people who'd experienced the loss of a parent to the loss of a sibling to the loss of a good friend, the loss of an older child, and we learned about color symbolisms, and which I'd already known being an art teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But we made artwork based on what we were feeling, and we used colors to represent that, and we used like symbolic imagery, and then we shared about what each thing meant to us, and that was really
That
helpful.
sounds cool.
Yeah, it was. And I actually have it hanging, like the painting that I made, I have it hanging above my desk here at home for my husband and I, for our relationship, and to help him too. We found a ministry called Redbird Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends who had lost her 22-year-old daughter to cancer put it on my radar. And it's because it's a ministry that she was very active in. And so she brought it to me as a possibility of like, this is something that you and your husband can do. It was a weekend retreat for couples
Okay.
who'd experienced the loss of a child. At first, I asked my husband, I was like, if I can get a scholarship for this, because they had
Can we?
scholarships available, can
Oh,
we do
gotcha.
this?
Mm-hmm.
Would you do this with me? And he gave me the silent response, like he didn't say anything. And
Okay.
then I was like, okay, well, maybe think about it and
Yeah.
let me know.
Yeah.
And as time went on, it was still silence. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to apply for the scholarship. We'll see what happens. And we got a scholarship, cover the majority of the cost. And I told him, I was like, we got a scholarship. We're going, clear your weekend.
So there.
Yes. So, and we have the type of relationship to where like, I never tell him what to do. I always like ask him like can we do this, or would you like to do this, or things like that. I
Yeah.
never tell him like we're doing this. So for me to
For
tell
you
him we're
to,
doing this,
he's
he
like,
knew that it
oh,
was important and that it was big.
okay. Okay.
And that weekend was really beneficial for us. It was 2 years and 1 month. So it was November of,
Just this last year,
yeah,
right?
just this last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just this last year. And we were grouped with other couples who had lost infants. And so that was one of the nice things about the ministry is like they have all of these couples that are there, and they group you into different
Based on,
sessions based on the age of your child at their time of
yeah.
their death. So we were grouped with about 6 other sets of parents that had all experienced either stillbirth or infant loss,
Yeah.
or the loss of a very young child. And so that was helpful for us to see that we're not the only ones out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a faith-based retreat, so it really helped us kind of like dig into our faith even deeper,
Mm-hmm.
in regards to like experiencing our loss through our faith. And I want to say that it was helpful for the other couples that were there, because a lot of those couples were very fresh in their grief, like within the year.
Okay.
And for us to have been so far out, like for them to be able to see that, yes, you can
You
continue on and,
you
and
will
get through this.
survive.
And yeah, so that was a really nice group experience. And so I will say that like if you do have, if you are a person of faith, like see what resources are out there. And this
Yeah.
whole ministry started because there weren't any resources for
Yeah.
parents of
Yeah.
loss in regards to faith-based resources. And so it was really beneficial for us to see that and to participate in that. And it really helped him see too that like that he doesn't have to be like the big strong man that
Yeah.
everybody expects him to be, that it's okay for him. And I really think that kind of jump started his healing process.
Good. That's great. Like it is interesting because as you can imagine, we have a lot more moms that come on the
Hmm.
podcast than we have dads. And I think the dads don't realize that it's okay to talk
Yeah.
about your baby, and it's not and your story can help somebody along the way.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I bet seeing other dads in that situation at the weekend retreat was probably helpful to be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I can be sad about this and
Yeah.
express
It
it.
was. Yeah. A couple months back, one of his good friends that lives in another state, they experienced the loss of their baby.
Oh,
She was born with a developmental issue,
uh-huh.
and died a couple days after being
Also,
born.
okay.
So he's been able to kind of like talk with him about that experience, and
Okay.
they also have one older child. So
A lot
they've
of
really been able to lean on each other in that regard. So I think it's the club that nobody wants to be in,
mhm,
but when
mhm.
you find somebody that's also a member of that club, it's really helpful.
It is. It extremely yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Yeah, you don't think you're gonna yeah, you feel so alone,
Yeah.
and then when you find your people, you're like, "Okay, sorry we're in this club together, but yeah,
Yeah.
thank
And
you
that's
for
the
being here."
experience I've had with my coworker too, who lost his daughter the July
Yeah.
after we lost Xander. Like so many people, like whenever I first found out about it, it was like our cohort group. I
Mhm.
got the text, and I didn't have this coworker's phone number. So I texted back to the person we had in common. I was like, here's like, give him my number.
Yes.
If he or his wife need anything, tell him to call me. But I had a lot of teachers then that I didn't even know like who was texting me, but they were texting me. They're like, we don't want to be insensitive, but we
What
know that you've been there. So we need to ask you, like, what
what
do we say?
Yes. Yes.
And I was like, well, I'll tell you what not to say.
Yes. Don't say those things. And
Yeah.
then, yeah.
So yeah, that was so like for any family members who are experiencing a family member who's gone through a loss, like there are some things that you may be well intended, but it really hurts.
It really
And
does.
you definitely need to be aware of those things. And I will say that like anybody who is experiencing loss and has had those things said to them, the biggest thing to remember is that they're not said with the intention to hurt you.
No, no, no. Yeah.
Uh,
Not one bit.
so
And that's one thing I
yeah,
think people realize. I always think it's kind of funny because you're just like, I've been there, right?
yeah,
Before you have a major loss, you're just like, I don't know what to say. Okay, I'm going to say this thing because I think I've heard other people say it. And then you
yeah,
realize after you had a loss, you're like, oh, not the best
yeah.
thing to say. Not the best thing to say at all. So,
Yeah, like the whole they're in a better place. Don't use that one.
no,
Don't use
no.
that one. No mom feels like no matter what the mom believes in afterlife, the mom will never believe that a better place is not in her arms.
Yes, yeah. And you raising them and taking care of them and everything. Why don't we actually go with that? So, what are some things? What things did you suggest to them about what could you say that, or something you could do that is nice and kind and caring and helpful after a loss?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is to think in terms of like random acts of kindness. And when I say that, like do an impromptu like grocery drop for them.
Yeah,
Like if like you can like call them or text them and be like, hey, I'm at the grocery store. What do you need me to pick up? And if they say, oh well, you don't have to do that, just be adamant and be like, no, what do you need me to pick up? Like, is
yeah,
there anything that you're out of or running low on? Like, I'm gonna pick it up for you and I'm gonna bring it to you. Like we had a lot of friends from out of state who would like DoorDash us dinner,
yeah.
which was really helpful. And then we had another friend of mine that set up a meal train. And then
That's
we had my
good.
kids' school set up a meal train after that one ran out.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah,
So
so
kind.
think in terms of random acts of kindness. I know for my coworker, one of the things that he said that I did afterwards that was really beneficial was I gifted him a journal with his daughter's name on the front.
Mm,
And I told him that, like, one of the things that I've done with all of my losses, even my miscarriages,
mm-hmm,
was that I would write letters to the baby in the journal.
mm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
and so, like, I told him, I was like, this is, something for me to give to you to kind of help with, because I know sometimes it's hard to express those thoughts in words, but it's easier to write them than to speak them.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so that was beneficial both for myself and for him. And I gave him two, so that one for his wife as well.
Mm-hmm,
Like just with those little things, like if it's something that would remind the parents of a sweet moment, if they're like, for example, we had a time in the hospital where we had a couple of friends come in, and so when the friends later on, they saw, like, around Christmas time, they saw an ornament with Xander's name on it, and so they bought it and they sent it to us.
that is cool.
So yeah, so like just little things like that, things like on the baby's birthday, like tell the parents like happy birthday
Yeah,
for
yeah,
your baby. So because that's the biggest thing for parents, especially with parents who have lost an infant or lost a baby during stillbirth, is like the hardest thing is like, do other people remember that they exist?
yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. And I know that was really, really hard for us because I honestly think my husband's mother is like early signs of dementia,
Mm,
because we were celebrating Xavier's birthday and we had FaceTimed her and she's like, what are you doing? We're like, oh, we're gonna sing happy birthday to Xavier. She's like, oh, it's his birthday. And then we had like a little cupcake on the side for Xander. And we'd mentioned, like, and she asked, oh, are you gonna eat the cupcake? We're like, no, that's Xander's. And she goes, who's Xander?
mm.
So it was like,
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, I can't believe you just asked that question.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
but yeah, so it's and I remember being very upset about that and kind of confiding in my family about it. And my sister had to remind me, like, she's probably, because she's much older.
yeah,
Um, she's like, she's probably going a little bit. And I was like,
yeah.
yeah, you're probably right. I shouldn't be upset. But yeah, it's definitely hard navigating, what to say, what not to say, and
Mhm. Totally.
um, and especially like having other children too, like with us having older children and with us having all boys. A lot of the comments that we would get from random strangers would be like, oh, you got 4 boys, one more and you'll have a basketball team, with them not knowing that we've lost that one more.
Yeah, they're like, we did have a basketball team.
Yeah. And a lot of times we would just kind of like smile and nod. But there was one time, like, it had been like the fifth or sixth person, like, within the day to say that to us. And I was like, this is enough. Like, and I felt so bad afterwards, but I turned to them and I was like, we did have a basketball team. He died. And then, they just like went stark. And I was like, and that's the other thing too.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know a family situation, like, don't make like random comments about the family itself. Like, I mean, having gone through all of my previous losses, like, I
Yeah.
never ask a parent, like, oh, when do you expect to have kids? And,
Yeah.
because, people ask me that all the time after our first loss, and they didn't know that we'd lost a baby.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then, now with having our boys, it's like, oh, you're gonna try for the girl? Well, no, we weren't trying for the last one, but
Yep. Yep.
so it's mind your business.
Yes. And that's it's
Yeah.
such a tricky situation because that's like the default cultural norm to
Hmm.
ask about
Yeah.
children. And you're like,
Right.
do you understand how loaded that question is, like
Yes.
in
Yeah.
general, for a
Yeah.
lot of people? Like
Yeah.
fertility issues,
Hmm.
losses, all these other things. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
tricky one. So usually recommend not asking
Yeah.
about that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
that's another thing too. Like, even after a parent, like, if a parent has lost a child, like, don't ask them, even if it's, down the road, like, don't ask them, oh, well, have you thought about when you're going to try again?
Yeah.
It's like, don't ask that question.
No, no, because they have probably thought about it
Yes.
a lot
Yes. Yes.
and anguished over it, and
Hmm.
so it is not a do not that is not one
Yeah.
to kind of broach. That's not your business. So
Yeah. Especially if it was a traumatic loss. Like,
yes, yeah,
they don't,
yes,
like, some parents don't want to open that box quite yet.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm just reminded of when you were talking about supporting your older son, where he was feeling like sad and mad and all these things, but then also he's got this like he's scared that he's going to lose his
Yeah.
other brother,
Hmm.
and there's that factor of just you're kind of protecting yourself, you're trying to protect your
Right.
psyche from like there's too many things that I could lose, and
Yeah.
so sometimes you don't get attached because you're trying to protect yourself, and so
Yeah. And like, I really struggled with that with Xavier being in the NICU still.
yeah.
Was like, I wanted to be there with him all the time, but at the same time I knew I had my other children.
Mhm.
And there were days when, like, I couldn't be there because just all of the beeping and it was too hard.
Yeah.
Like, there were times, like, when I remember one of the nurses, she's like, why don't you go down to the cafeteria for a little bit? Because she could see that I was getting, like, really anxious. And one of the other things that they did for us too was, when a space opened up in the opposite wing of the NICU, they had Xavier moved over there so that we weren't
Oh,
right there in the spot where Xander had passed
associated,
away. Yeah.
gotcha, okay.
Which, in the first week or so after he'd passed away, it wasn't an issue for us because they just had an empty bassinet there. I think it was hardest for us when we saw a different baby in his spot.
Okay, yeah,
And so that's when I was kind of like, okay, I'm ready to move.
yeah.
um, but yeah, so that was definitely hard navigating that. And because every little hiccup that would happen with Xavier was an instant, we're going to lose him.
Mm.
And that was like, your mind goes to worst case scenario. And every
Oh,
time he would desat, it was like, I would go into a panic, and it's like, okay, the nurses, you're not getting here fast enough. You need to be running. Like, we're
yeah,
going to get here.
yeah,
And for them, it was a very, like, normal, okay, babies do this. This is okay. This is okay. Like, he's on the breathing machine. He's like, this is okay.
yeah.
Like, it was so hard for us because, like, I would sit there and I would hear the beep and I would watch the numbers, and I would just spend hours and hours watching those numbers. It was really hard.
And that's traumatic right there. There's so much
Yes. Yeah.
association, I am sure,
Yeah.
that you
So,
felt.
yeah, it was tough because, you're trying to pay memory to the baby that passed, and at the same time be there for the baby that's still alive and your other children. And I really felt a lot that I was being pulled in a million different directions.
Yeah, yeah, completely.
And
It does feel that way,
yeah.
yeah, just
And I
from
had
your
my
telling of
students
it.
at school on top of it, and,
Asking and
and yeah,
probably
and my students, like, they had their own issues that they were going through. Like, I teach in a Title I school.
mhm,
So I have a lot of students that are from very rough households,
right.
and, some are raising younger siblings, and some are living with grandma, and some are
Mm,
homeless. And so just kind of like being there for them too.
Yeah.
Like I really felt like I was pulled in a million different directions. And I think that's probably where therapy helped once I started going back to therapy,
Mm-hmm.
was that I was able to kind of focus in on me versus everyone else. So,
Yeah. And it is a dedicated time. So for
yes.
just a little bit of quiet. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I'm always like, if you can go to therapy and find the right therapist,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
is very helpful. It's very helpful.
And that
Uh,
was the big thing, was finding the right therapist. Like
yes.
I looked into several different practices and
Did
made
you?
sure that whichever therapist I was getting was versed in bereavement and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Like not just one or the other, but both.
Yeah.
So
Because there's like in your story, it really is. There's so much
yeah.
where you are dealing. Just it's multi-layered of
Yeah.
all of that bereavement and trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's rough. Sarah, I wanted to actually hit on this because this is one thing that I was when I got your email first, I was impressed with how much of an advocate you are for for TAPS, right? So the
Hmm.
twin anemia polycythemia sequence. So that is something that is very, very new. We've kind of alluded to it in this episode and in the previous. Do you want to tell us a little bit I want people to know a little bit more about this. So
Hmm.
will you talk a little bit more about the differences you've seen between that and TTTS, right?
Hmm. Right.
There's a difference. I heard
Yes.
about TTTS, but when you brought up the other one, I was like, whoa, I have not heard of this before,
Hmm.
and how different and how that actually informed the decisions that could have been made when they were born versus
Hmm.
taking it as a TTTS situation. So
Right.
can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I appreciate the advocacy portion, because the more we talk about different things, people can kind of just be more aware of
Right.
what could happen, and to talk to other people if there's like, okay, do you have identical twins
Yes.
of the same,
Yeah.
yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that then?
Yeah. So I didn't find out about TAPS. I knew about TTTS ahead of time because I
Mm-hmm.
had kind of like found it in my Googling about the size difference between the two babies. Like I always kick myself for not mentioning that to any of my doctors.
Yeah.
But the thought in the back of everybody's mind was, well, they're not identical, so they can't have TTTS. And so that was like the big thing with regards to the missed diagnosis,
Yeah.
um, because we weren't diagnosed until they were in stage 4, which is heart failure. And there are 5 stages, the 5th stage being death. And so when he first told me that they had TAPS, I was like, well, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, it's a form of TTTS, which after further research, it's not. They do share some similarities in terms of blood vessels being shared across both babies on the placenta. But with TTTS, it's an unequal sharing of fluids total.
Yes.
And whereas with TAPS, it's an unequal sharing of just the red blood vessels. So one baby becomes severely anemic, and the other baby is polycythemic, and I think that's what it's called,
Yeah.
where their blood is too thick.
Yeah.
And so one baby is not getting enough nutrients, not getting enough oxygen, and therefore can't grow and develop on pace. And then the other baby is getting too much. Their heart is having to work a little bit extra. Their organs are having to work a little bit extra.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a cocktail for disaster.
Yeah.
Many babies who are born with a TAPS diagnosis that has been missed until the babies are born are kind of like in limbo as to whether or not they're going to survive if they don't get the right medical treatments.
Okay.
And so, for a baby that's born with TTTS that has not been resolved in utero, it usually involves specific transfusions of like whole blood. Whereas a baby that's born with TAPS, if they get a transfusion of whole blood, it could kill them.
Yes.
So with the TAPS babies, they have to determine which one is anemic, which one is polycythemic. So which one is going to get the very specialized solutions to thin their blood, which one is going to get the transfusions of just red blood cells. And they have to get enough transfusions to balance things out.
Yeah.
So Xavier, with his blood being too thick, he got 2 transfusions to dilute it.
Mm-hmm.
And with Xander being severely anemic, he had 4 transfusions of red blood cells, which is not typical at all. Normally they like only
Yeah.
need 1 or 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then his heart was so,
Right. His heart was so weak. Yeah.
yeah, and it just wasn't enough to
Yeah.
help. So, and the other thing that I thought was interesting, and which it does make sense, where you could tell like the pallor
Hmm.
of their skin was
Yeah.
very evident of which one was anemic and which one is the one
Right.
that had too many red blood cells. So
Right.
that was an interesting
Yeah.
fact.
And so with TAPS, like in the past, they've kind of looped it in with TTTS, and they're only
Hmm.
recently just realizing that they are two
They
very
need to.
different medical conditions and need to be separated. And it can happen to where twins with TTTS can develop TAPS either before laser surgery, which is called spontaneous TAPS when it develops on its own,
Mm-hmm.
um, or after the in utero laser surgery to separate the blood vessels on the placenta. TAPS can develop as a result of that
Oh,
surgery.
okay.
So, so even with the babies that have TTTS and go through those surgeries, which are considered to be still pioneering because they've only been around since the 1980s, like I sit there and I'm like, wow, like I'm as old as this medical diagnosis. Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's like it's so like new in terms of medical acknowledgement for the families that are going through this. Like there's still a lot of high risk factors. The in utero options are not guarantees of
Mm-hmm.
cures.
Mm-hmm.
They're considered treatments. For that reason alone, a lot of medical professionals won't even consider them as
Oh.
options. Which one of the MFMs that I was with, that's kind of what he was hinting at when we were receiving information about TAPS in general. He's like, well, they're still pioneering. They wouldn't have been options for you anyway, which finding out in hindsight, that was a total falsehood. We would have had the option of an intrautero transfusion at
Mm-hmm.
stage 3. Um,
Oh, okay.
so yeah, it's one of those things to where like, and it's one of those things where like my hospital wouldn't have been able to do it. We would have had to
Well,
fly up to like John Hopkins.
yes. Okay.
Um, but it would have been an option for us had they caught it sooner.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, but because you guys had discovered it in stage 4, that
yeah.
is, yeah, so much damage had been done. And found other, you found other group. I mean, there's a
Hmm.
group that is supporting families that might be going through this
Hmm.
and or have lost a
Right.
baby or babies because of this. Is that right?
Yes. So there's two organizations. One is the TAPS International Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
which is worldwide. Their organizers are based in the Netherlands, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but they really are adamant about worldwide advocacy,
Yeah.
because it isn't something that just happens, here in the States. It happens to mothers and babies all over the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like one of the conversations that I've had with some of the ladies on there, like we've gone back and there's a painting that hangs in a Germanic state. I can't remember which one it is, but it's a painting of two twin babies. One is white and one is red. And
Oh,
so that is the first documented anything we have about babies with TAPS.
whoa.
Yeah, and so this was like back like Renaissance era.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has been around a long time. And even if you're a Christian and you look at the Bible and the story of Jacob and Esau,
Exactly.
one
He's
is born
ready.
with red when
Ah,
as he comes out. So there's another, it's like
whoa.
that could have been TAPS.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it's and it's interesting because I've met a lot of people through my advocacy. The other foundation that's here at stateside is the TTTS Foundation, and
Mm-hmm.
they kind of advocate also for TAPS and Seeger, which is a growth restriction,
Mm.
and other things that affect twins. And in conversations that I've had with people there, they've been able to share like icons and stuff like that that you can post to Facebook and to kind of advocate for awareness. And whenever I've done that on like TAPS International Day or TAPS Awareness Day,
Yeah.
I actually had a friend from college who reached out to me and she's like, wait a minute, so you mean to tell me? And it turns out her babies had TAPS and she was never diagnosed with it. Her babies were born via emergency C-section at 38 weeks. They were monochorionic girls. One was severely anemic, and the reason that they delivered them early was because my friend had preeclampsia, and so they needed to deliver the
So
babies
they,
early. They didn't. They had no idea that the babies had TAPS.
oh my
Yeah,
gosh. That
yeah, and
feels
that and
like,
that and that was 4 years ago. So it's like, yeah.
oh my gosh.
So
That
the
is,
routines that are available to medical professionals for this early detection are not being done.
Yes.
Across the board. It's not just like one practice or another. It's across the board. And that's why whenever I do find out that a mom is having twins,
Then you just,
the first thing I tell them is make sure your doctor does MCA Dopplers at every single visit. It's like, even if you're not diagnosed with TAPS, make sure they're done at every single visit, because that is the only way to diagnose TAPS, is
Yeah.
to find that imbalance in the flow of blood in the umbilical cords.
yeah. That is, I just think that it's great that, because there's like our advocacy of just like, stillbirth happens, like
Mm-hmm.
or infant loss. I mean, like there's all sorts of things that
Yeah.
happen, and just to bring awareness that things can happen, and if it puts it on somebody's radar so that they're aware or they can ask the right questions,
Right.
that is feels like we're helping.
Yeah, because that was our situation. Like, we didn't even know, like, what, as new twin parents, we didn't
Exactly.
even know what questions to ask.
Exactly. You
We
don't know
didn't know
what you
what was
don't know.
normal. We
Yeah.
didn't know what was abnormal. And those were not things that were readily told to us either. At each visit with the MFM, they're like, yeah, we're a little concerned about the size difference. And then when Xavier started to drop, they're like, yeah, we're really concerned that he's dropping too. But they never looked into it. We never thought to ask, like, well, what could be
Further.
wrong? Like we didn't know. And that's the biggest thing for parents of expectant twins, is like, ask questions. Like, no question is too simple, no question is wrong. No, like, ask the questions. And if you don't know what questions to ask, you can find a group on Facebook about, like, twin pregnancies and what questions should I be asking. Like, you will get a whole bunch of responses as to
Yeah.
what questions should I be asking.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've kind of done too, is like, even though I only have one surviving twin, I'm still a part of those twin groups on Facebook, like the MODI groups and the MOMO groups.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because, like, whenever, like, I want to be able to tell moms, like, make sure your doctor is doing this, make sure you're asking this question. If I had a mom who the other day was like, yeah, my babies are measuring small, and I was like, make sure your doctor does this if they haven't done it already.
Okay.
Because I don't want other parents to go through what we went through
And be blindsided by.
Exactly. We were completely blindsided. For people to know about it, to know that it exists, is the first step in a healthy outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Sarah, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've really appreciated all your insight, and it's been like, I appreciate how well spoken you are, especially about this, because really, you just, when you become an advocate, you realize you're like, I need to be able to like tell people this very important information very quickly. And so I appreciate you speaking so well about that. And so thank you so much again for sharing all about Xander, and also about Xavier too, like just trying to help us understand this a lot better. And I'm so sorry for your loss again. Is there any last little bit of advice or anything that you wanted to share before we closed up today?
I will say that, like, I know that there are some parents out there who have lost both of their twins. And for us in our situation, they look at us and go, well, at least you have one baby. And so I know that we were very fortunate in that regard. But I also know that, we look to other people and be like, oh, you have two babies, and, or you didn't experience any of this and you had a healthy, happy pregnancy. And there were times that I had to pull myself out of NICU groups on social media, because just the mothers going back and forth about, oh, my baby's doing this, my baby's doing that. Like, it was too hard, because I was like, I should have two babies doing this.
Yeah.
So my last piece of advice would be to know when to take a step back.
Yes.
Know when to pull yourself out of certain groups or certain situations or even certain conversations.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is to be patient with yourself. And the biggest thing to remember too is that grief is not linear.
Oh yeah.
It is cyclical.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, we're 2.5 years out, and there's still good days and bad days. Like, I still cry on the way to work sometimes, and or Xavier will do something, and it triggers me, like, we should have this too. And holidays are really hard, because we brought Xavier home on Christmas Eve, and that's always a hard point, because we should have brought two babies home on Christmas Eve. So the biggest thing again is, be okay with taking a step back, be okay with pulling yourself out of certain conversations, situations, and take it day by day and minute by minute if that's what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. This grief journey is not easy and surprising. It's very sneaky sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And if you can, I know it's hard to want to find somebody else that's in the same experiences, but it really is helpful to have that person to talk to,
Yeah.
and to be there like for each other as kind of a person to lean on.
Yeah. It is. Yes, I say amen to that one because it really makes a huge difference when you found like there's people that can really understand you.
Mhm.
And so, Sarah, thank you again for your time today. And thank you for your advice and your telling us a little bit more about what's happening and your heart. Like it feels like you've just borne your heart to us and
Yeah.
I thank you for that. So thank you
Yeah.
again.
Thank you. And that's a big thing too. Like I've learned over the years is don't shy away from the conversations.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
like talking about it helps. And even if people don't want to hear about it or if it seems to make other people uncomfortable, that's okay. I'll let them be uncomfortable.
Yeah. There's
So
a lot
yeah.
of uncomfortable things in this
Yes.
life and so
Yes.
yep, exactly. So thank you again, Sarah.
Thank you.